Hey everyone, thanks for slipping some time with me today. In this episode, you can see that we've got a fuel tank here, we've got a couple boxes of something in them, we've got a car over here. What's that all about? Well, this is a box or two boxes of parts that I will unbox in front of you a little later. And there's numerous things to put into this car to basically get it up to snuff from sitting for over 10 years. A lot of maintenance it needs, just routine stuff that we're going to do, and we'll go through that and I'll show you what's in here. This episode, mainly as we dig this out, is going to be fixing some stuff on this fuel tank. So over here, where the fuel pump, fuel assembly, fuel sender unit goes in, some studs were rusted out when it bolts in, and they broke, and they're part of the tank. So I've got a kit in here that we're going to go through and show you how that's put in, how to repair that. So that's where this is going to focus on, but I'm going to take you through all the stuff I ordered here and show you all what I'm planning to do with this car in future episodes. So without further ado, let's get going. By the way, these parts are from what's called RTM Racing. They specialize in particularly DSMs, Eagle Talons, Plymouth Lasers, and Mitsubishi Eclipses, first and second generations. And they have very reasonable pricing, very good selection, always stocked. Highly recommend them. Very good as well as customer service. Pack stuff up really good and efficiently to get you to maximize your shipping costs as well. So pretty pleased with them. Using them for many years. Highly recommend them. And that's not a sponsorship. I just like using them. So what did I order? Well, other than I already mentioned the fuel pump assembly as well as the stud repair kit for the fuel tank, I've got a number of things here. I'll just go through them. So I've got all the doing the timing belt. Something you definitely should do in this car. If you don't know the last time it was done, or if it's been sitting like this one forever, you need to do the timing belt. But there's more to the timing belt than just the belt itself. I've covered that I actually have I think it's a 4-part series actually on how to do the timing belt in these cars. So I'm not going to go through exactly everything you should be doing. But let's just say there's some pulleys, idler pulleys, tensioners, belts. There's a balancer belt if you have it. There's a few miscellaneous things to deal with. So I ordered all those. So that's what these top ones are, I can already tell. Belts, obviously, I'll just take them out here, see what we got. That's a tensioner for timing. I got a heavy-duty Mitsubishi timing belt. I think that's a pinion seal that I got to do for the rear diff. Fuel filter, because we're doing the whole fuel system, cleaning it out. That's a whole mess. Another previous episode, I show you how messed up that is, and I'm still dealing with it on this tank right now and trying to clean it out. We got a water pump, some spark plugs. Oh, we're going to get into this a little more, obviously, in this episode, but this is the fuel pump assembly stud repair kit. So we'll put that aside, put it in the tank right here. Something we've got right here is a brand new fuel pump assembly. And this is a pretty nice piece. Let me take it out of here. This basically will replace and drop into the tank. It's got provisions for your fuel sending unit, which actually is what sends to your gauge, your fuel gauge, whether it's full or not. We can put that on. So I'm pretty excited when we finally drop this into the car and get things operational. It looks a lot better than the one that I had in there, isn't it? Yeah, well, here's a picture of it, what I actually pulled out of there. Let's look in box number 2. What do we got in here? Oh yeah, I got all kinds of fluid. Yeah, we're basically gonna flush all the fluids and change them. So that's like engine oil, That's going to be the rear differential, the transfer case, the transmission. We're going to flush the brake fluid, the clutch fluid, a number of things. So basically what this is just a bunch of fluid that I got. Not that this is going to be doing too much racing, but I got some really good brake fluid. And yeah, got the Mitsubishi basically for the fluid for the transmission. Yeah, so that's what all this is. This is an all-inclusive, everything I'm going to be doing to the car as I go through it. This is what I know that I need to do up front right away to get this car kind of in tip-top shape. Keeps me busy for now, but as I look through the car, I'm sure I'll notice some other things, and I'll tell you what those are. But for today, let's get to fixing those broken studs on this tank. This is all the parts that are taken out of the bag to fix the broken studs in the fuel tank for the fuel pump assembly. And it'll be more clear exactly how they fit as we go through it. So I'm not going to go through each thing, but that's basically what you get. And now we'll start putting it together, or showing you how to put it together. I'm going to go through a little bit of how this actually is supposed to work, so you know what I'm doing as I go through the steps, why it kind of makes sense a bit. So these essentially are kind of the main pieces that go on, and they go in actually underneath in here like that on each side, or whatever side you want to do. And essentially you got to do some drilling to get these to mount in, and then you're going to drill out the broken studs. I have 3 here, 1, 2, 3, and you can actually replace all the studs if you want with this whole thing, or you can just do the broken ones. It's entirely up to you. I thought I was going to do all of them, but now that I rethink this, I may show you what to do just if you want to replace, in this case, 3 of them that are broken and keep the others. And if you want to go any further, that's entirely up to you. But that way you kind of know the options that you have and how much work ahead you want to do. It all depends how consistent you want it to be honest, but nobody sees this. And you just want to make sure it's functional and it seals is the main thing. So I'm going to take you through that. Now, you're probably wondering what this little big device is. This is actually a drill guide that comes with the kit. If you order it, you can order without it, so you can try not to try to drill things without it. If you're going to do a lot of these in the future, if you think you are, which I probably will be, it's actually a good little device to have, and you don't have to order it with every kit. You can just order it the first time, and then you have it. So this is kind of a drill guide, and I'm going to take you through how that works as well. By the way, there are instructions on how to do this out there as well, including on the RTM Racing website that you can go into. They're very good instructions, but I'm going to show you kind of how I do it. It won't be exactly that way. And first things first is you want to make sure that you don't have a lot of debris, or if you have debris coming in here, going in the tank, you need to get this all cleaned out then. In my case, because as you may have noticed in a previous video if you watched it, I'm cleaning out this tank right now anyway, so it will completely get cleaned out if I drop any debris in there. But most of you might be doing this even inside the car, so you want to do kind of cover this up and make sure no debris is in there. So if you drain, you should drain the tank, and then you can kind of put a cloth in there to catch stuff as well. I recommend also another way to do it is I have some really strong earth magnets here. They're actually from old pacemaker programming from when I used to work with medical equipment, but actually I got metal on it already. But that can kind of keep all this stuff too if you're drilling, and all the metal components will actually cling to it, which is exactly what you want to make sure doesn't fall in the tank. So that's actually pretty handy to use. So even though I got this guide, which you're going to see how that works eventually here, I've got these studs are not equal with the surface here, and when you drill in, it is kind of hard to, if you don't have a center punch and all that. If you anyway have drilled broken studs out, you know you got to try and get right in the center of it, and it's a little hard when it's actually raised up rather than when you're inset a little bit. So these 3 that are broken, I'm actually going to use a die grinder, and I'm going to make these flush first before I start any drilling. And to try and stop any debris going in, I've got this little container that kind of fits perfect in here. It's kind of conical shape, so it works really good. Kind of plugs right in there, and then I can start doing the work I need to do on this. Important too, before I get started, that you do not want any fuel in here, and you don't want any sparks. So if you're not experienced in this, you should not be doing this on how to do things like this, because there's fuel fumes. If you haven't got inert gas in there, you shouldn't be doing this at all. Definitely not, because you could start a fire, and it's not something you want to do. So I'm just doing this to show you what I'm doing, but doesn't mean you should be doing it at all. I've drained all the contents. I've filled this with water. I've rinsed it out. I've done all kinds of things to get rid of any fumes. So it's safe right now for me. And unless you're going to do anything like that and experienced, you should not be doing this. The next thing I want to do, I'll just take this off to show you first, is I want to clean off some of this rust, this surface rust here. I wanted to get these kind of flush first before I did that. And then I'm going to take a wire wheel basically and clean out here. And again, I don't want to get any debris in there, so I'm going to put this back in and do my best to try and get this all cleaned up. Now I got it all kind of cleaned up, and I'm going to do some prep on here after I drill some stuff. I'm keeping these studs, and what I want to do is make sure that they're cleaned up from any rust, and in case they were cross-threaded a little bit too. So I got a little tap here. So what I'm going to do is basically chase them, it's called. And I already did this one ahead of time, so I start with normally as if you are doing a die on something like to make a threaded rod or something like that. So I do the tapered side first, and that works, and then I flip it upside down so the tapered end isn't there anymore, so I can basically chase it all the way down as far as I can, and then I make sure that thread is good. And I do that to all the studs that I'm going to keep. That one is done now. And then I'll take the tapered side again, just to get rid of any rust there is on there. And yeah, just like that. It actually is pretty good. It's turning by hand, which is awesome. So that's going to work out really good. This also will tell me that anything is really bad as far as threads go, like if it's stripped completely, and that I should be actually just replacing them anyway with this kit. And the nice thing about this kit too is if you change your mind later that you want to remove the rest of the studs, or they do break later on, you can add them later on. So this is what we call a drill guide, and it essentially, this is the bottom side. It's got a little bit of a flange on here to fit in here, and it's got the appropriate places where you want to drill. So you put it on, and hopefully you've got some leftover studs that aren't broke. And if you don't, then I'd suggest actually drilling some holes of the ones that latch these plates on, and then you can lock it down and then drill. But I should be okay because I've got these 3 studs to kind of keep it from turning like that. And then I can drill away on where I need the holes. So I've got this drill bit, which is 7/32, is actually included in the kit. So that's actually pretty handy that you don't have to even go buy a drill bit, but it's a 7/32 in case you do need one and you didn't buy this extra kit. I ordered this drill guide. I don't know if it has to be ordered with the drill guide or comes in or whatever, if that's included, or if this comes even if you don't have this. I don't know. That's something you can ask maybe, but basically it's a 7/32, which is a standard bit. It's in your typical pack of bits that you end up having in your little cases, so it's not like you won't have one if you need it. So I'm going to put it in and start drilling. I still like to use cutting oil for that so I don't dull my bit. And I'm going to use this to catch any steel bits underneath, or any shavings in that come out after, so that I don't drop a bunch of stuff in the tank. Again, I'm cleaning this tank out anyway, but I don't like having stuff in there no matter what. And that, you can see how that caught a lot of the stuff with having this really strong magnet on there. So we're going to wipe that clean now, and we'll go on to the next one. And just so you know how it did, it actually did a really good job. If you look in there, worked really good. So I'm just going to drill them all out. Essentially now, that's all we've got to do. Make sure you move if you're using a magnet, make sure you're moving that along with it. And I forgot to use this stuff, which is very important to use. Okay, so I've got all the broken stud stuff out. Now we got to do the guide holes, which we'll do that next. So I've got all the holes drilled now, and I'm just going to feel under here to see if I have any rough edges underneath that I need to actually file down. And the drill bit is pretty sharp in the way I cut it. Oh, I got one little burr there I got to get rid of. So you can file it down and do the same method. I'll show you what I got. I got one of these, which is a deburr kit, which I do like much better. Just going to use this magnet again to catch anything, and essentially it'll clear out the hole, and it did. Oh, one little bit there. Yeah, so we got all that taken care of now. Clean it up a little bit. Cleaning it up just because of that cutting oil. Basically, these pieces now will fit in, kind of like this. So before I do that, this is now exposed now that I wire wheeled it and cleaned it up. And I want to put some rust proofing in here before I do anything else. And to do that, I am going to use some good old POR 15 on this. And then I can let it sit overnight. So I just want to do that because of this is just going to rust again. And for sure it's going to. And then if I put this POR 15, there's no way it'll ever rust again. And then it'll have this protection on here, and we'll be good to go forever and ever and ever. And then I'll carry on and show you how to install these and the rest of the kit, how it all works. This is the fun stuff. Make sure you wear a mask for this, and we will get to it. I'm gonna find my mask. Oh, there it is. So now that all the prep work's done, we can put the main pieces in after all that. And the first thing you should do before you put it in is there's some O-rings here that you put in, and that's to help seal things up so you don't get fuel coming through the screw holes that retain this on here. And then you tuck it in and make sure it's orientated properly. And then you take these pan head bolts, nuts, and you put them in like that. And just to make sure things are aligned, I like to take actually the what's going to now be the studs and put them in as well just before I tighten these guys here. And the reason I do this is because when I tighten these guys, these get aligned properly for when you are fitting the fuel pump. It just makes it a little easier. And you know you've got things aligned. So I'll put them in. And this kit comes with an Allen key as well, or Allen wrench. So that makes it nicer too. You don't have to buy a bunch of tools if you don't have them. Most of you, if you're doing this anyway, you're probably going to have the tools, but it is nice they include it to help you out. Make sure it's tight. Now the O-rings will actually help it never come loose. It's kind of almost like a lock washer too, but it does seal it up too. So tighten it, don't strip it. And then these should come out. And they certainly do. And now we got the second one to do. We're just going to basically do the same thing on this side now. Get it lined up. Put these little pan heads in. And you want to make sure that these ones, so they're flush enough that when you put the pump in, they don't stick out and you don't get that seal. And we'll put this in so it, again, helps line it up. And there you have it. So I'm going to show you how to put a pump in, but before I do that, I'll just show what we have here now that we've done this. So we have the 3 original studs that didn't break, all good to go here. And then the ones that were broken were drilled out, so we're actually going to use bolts when we put the pump in. And then we'll be tightening them down like so. Like that. So now I'll show you how to put a pump in and how it all comes together at the end now. So here we have a fuel pump assembly to go in and just show you how that works. And this port's going to be pointed that way, so let's put it in. And oh, I guess I should show you too. There's a gasket on here to seal things up, which is pretty standard on this pump assembly. Make sure that's in there. Don't forget that gasket to seal it up. And essentially it goes like that. You're going to take your nuts for your regular studs, put them on like so. Like that. Of course I'm going to tighten them up when I get there. And then you're going to take the ones that were broken, and you've got your little bolts, and you go in there, and you put them in, like so. Like that. Got that one in. And of course you tighten them up, and voila! It's all fixed and ready to go. Just like that. So that's how you can fix the broken studs in a fuel tank, particularly these ones for these cars. And it's all done, ready to go and start assembling. I've got some more cleaning up in this tank to do, and then when it's all cleaned up, then I can basically put it all back together, put it in, and get the fuel system all flushed out, and then we're good to go. So one last tip for you guys that are putting your fuel pump on at any point, even if you've got all the studs and they aren't broken, or you're doing this and you got some combination of the bolts and then you've got the nuts as well, put on some anti-seize on it as well, just so these don't get rusted up again, because they probably will over time again if it waits long enough, depending how much it's exposed to elements. But they're just because they're such a small basically stud, they're a little more susceptible to breaking because there's not a lot of meat on them to begin with. So it's always good to just do that. It doesn't hurt anything. Just put a little dab on there and put it on. So that's it for this episode. Hopefully you got some benefit out of it and some entertainment out of it. And we're going to go on to the next thing. So to check that out, make sure you subscribe. And until then, enjoy every day and always make it right.